that Old Man Tao's hands, gnarled like the roots of the acacia tree, could no longer grip a spear or till the tough earth, but they were perfect for stroking the fur of the many animals who found solace at his humble mud-brick home on the edge of the village and the vast sun-scorched savannah. To the villagers, he was just a quiet elder. To the animals, he was a sanctuary. His philosophy was simple, whispered on the wind and understood by all creatures. Ubuntu. I am because we are. He shared his meager porridge with a mischievous band of mongoose, left out crushed maize for the ground-feeding birds, and always spared a gourd of water for any thirsty soul who passed by. His closest companion was a young giraffe named Loyolo, whose name means "he who brings joy." Larulo had been found as a fawn, trembling and alone after a wildfire, and Tao had raised him. Now, the giraffe's head would often appear over the thornbush fence, his gentle dark eyes watching the old man's every move. But a great stillness fell over the land. The rains did not come. The sun was a merciless copper coin in a bleached sky. The once lush grasses turned to brittle yellow dust, and the great waterhole, the lifeblood of the savannah, began to shrink, its edges cracking like a broken pot. The animals grew thin and desperate. The harmony of the savannah frayed. The zebras, their ribs showing like stripes of shadow, snapped at the wildebeest. The elephants, usually so stately, rumbled with a low, anxious thunder. The air was thick with the scent of fear and dust. One evening Tao saw Loyolo return from the waterhole, his gait slow and dejected. The water was too low for his long neck to reach. He was dying of thirst in a land that was his home. Tao's heart ached. He looked at his own small water jar, almost half full. It was enough for him for a few more days. But it was nothing for a giraffe. A single, selfish thought whispered to him, "This is all I have. I must keep it." But then he looked into Lojolo's patient, suffering eyes, and the whisper died. Ubuntu was not a convenience, it was a covenant. He did not hesitate. He dragged the heavy jar into the center of his compound. Then he took his walking stick and tapped it against the hollow log he used to call the animals for scraps. It was not a call for food, but a call for help. One by one, they came, the mongoose family, their noses twitching, a ragged pair of zebras, a flock of Cape doves, a lone old baboon. They gathered around the jar, their eyes reflecting their confusion and thirst. Tao, his voice, raspy but firm, spoke not in human words, but in the universal language of action. He dipped a small calabash into his precious water, but he did not drink. He walked to Lojolo and held it high. The giraffe understood, bending his great neck to sip the life-giving water. Then Tao dipped the calabash again. This time he poured it into a shallow stone for the mongoose. Again he dipped and let the doves drink from his palm. The animals watched, transfixed. They saw the old man, who was also thirsty, give away his last defense against the drought. A deep rumbling came from the edge of the compound. The earth shook slightly as Canidude, the old bull elephant whose name meant cannot die, emerged from the thinning brush. He had long been a wary observer of Tao's kindness. He watched as the human, the one creature who usually took from the land, gave everything he had left. Canidude ambled forward. He looked at the nearly empty jar. He looked at the weak and thirsty animals. Then he did something no one expected. He curled his trunk and let out a deep, resonant trumpet that echoed across the plains. It was a call of command, of community. He turned and began to walk. The zebras, understanding some primal instinct, fell in behind him. The wildebeest followed Lujolo, with a new strength in his step, joined the procession. Tao, leaning on his stick, followed the great exodus. Canidude led them not to the empty waterhole, but to a place a mile away, where the earth was damp and a particular hardy type of reed was still green. He began to dig. His powerful tusks and trunk moved rocks and earth. The other animals, inspired, joined in. The zebras and wildebeest kicked at the soil with their hooves. Lojolo used his long legs to clear debris. They dug not as separate species, predator and prey. Large and small, but as a single community united by the selfless act of an old man. And then it happened. Water, cool and clear, began to seep from the earth, filling the hollow they had created. It was not a river, but a spring, a new small waterhole born from cooperation. The animals drank their fill, their strength returning. The baboon hooted with joy. The doves cooed. Loyolo drank deeply, his long neck finally able to reach the water. That night, back in his compound, Tao sat exhausted. His own water jar was empty, but as he looked up at the stars, he heard a sound. It was Lujolo returning, and behind him came Canidude, the old bull elephant. The elephant walked to Tao's empty rain barrel, inserted his trunk into his own stomach where he stored water, and filled the barrel to the brim with fresh, clean water. A gift for a gift. A life for a life. The village, when they heard the story, was humbled. They had hoarded their water in fear. But Old Man Tao, by giving his away, had created more for everyone. The drought eventually broke. The great waterhole filled again. But the new, smaller spring, now named Isolola Senkor Lako, the Tree of Freedom, remained. It was a place where all animals, and sometimes the village herders, could drink in peace. For they all understood now, from the tallest giraffe to the smallest mongoose, from the oldest human to the youngest calf, the truest meaning of Ubuntu. Your suffering is my suffering. Your survival is my survival. I am only because we are